The sun had barely risen over Crestwood High when the new teacher arrived, stepping out of a modest car with a quiet strength in her posture that few noticed but all would one day remember. Her name was Ms. Amara Hill, a woman in her early 30s with calm eyes that carried stories she never bothered to brag about. She had come from a large city full of noise, poverty, and hidden brilliance, places where she had taught students with broken homes, broken hopes, and sometimes broken bones. But she chose Crestwood for a fresh start, hoping a small town would offer peace, structure, and maybe a chance to teach without confronting the storms she had grown used to. She didn't know that Crestwood High was ruled not by academics or imagination but a silent fear of a group of privileged boys known unofficially as the Proud Lions, 3 seniors who strutted the halls as if they owned them: Blake, the ringleader with a cruel smirk; Carter, his tall, quiet shadow who followed orders blindly; and Jace, the loud one who treated every insult like a joke only he understood. They had everything: wealthy families, freedom from consequences, and the full confidence that no one in the school would dare stand up to them. Ms. Hill sensed something the moment she entered the halls. Students avoided eye contact. Murmurs slithered behind lockers like snakes hiding from the heat. Teachers whispered warnings, but politely, never directly. She kept her shoulders relaxed, offering warm greetings and gentle smiles to every anxious eye that flicked her way. She believed respect was earned, not demanded, and she wanted to earn hers through talent, not fear. Unfortunately, the Lions didn't care who she was. The moment they saw her, Blake's smirk stretched like a knife being sharpened. "New teacher, huh?" he murmured, stepping into her path. "Hope you're not too soft. Crestwood can be rough on outsiders." Ms. Hill simply smiled. "I've worked in tougher places." Blake's grin faltered for a fraction of a second. He hated confidence he couldn't intimidate. "We'll see," he muttered, stepping aside. Her first class went well. Students warmed quickly to her creative teaching style, using real-life examples, funny metaphors, and a surprising ability to turn complicated lessons into simple, enjoyable stories. But the more students liked her, the more the Lions saw her as a threat, not because she was strict, but because she was respected. And respect was the one thing they thought they controlled. By lunchtime, they had already made up their minds. They wanted to embarrass her before she became someone students depended on, before she became someone the school admired. The opportunity came quicker than expected. Ms. Hill stepped outside near the school garden to take a call from her mother, who was checking on how her first-day adventure was going. As she walked past the sports field, she didn't see Blake whispering to Carter, nor Jace's phone camera already recording. "You want to put on a show for the new teacher?" Blake said loudly, pretending to joke. "I bet she's never seen real Crestwood mud." Ms. Hill didn't hear them until it was too late. Boots stomped the grass behind her, voices taunting her, and before she could even turn around, a rough shove sent her stumbling forward. Mud splattered in a cold wave as she fell face-first into the thick brown slush by the field's edge. Laughter burst behind her like fireworks of cruelty. The mud clung to her hair, soaked her clothes, and smeared across her face in a humiliating blanket. She pushed herself slowly upward, her breathing steady, too steady. The students who witnessed the scene gasped but didn't intervene. Some recorded. Some stared in guilt. Some just froze. Blake stepped forward, kicking a clump of mud toward her hands. "Oops," he sneered, "guess you slipped. Maybe teach yourself how to walk before teaching us anything." The joke was cruel, but the undertone was crueler, targeting her heritage, her skin, her presence in a school they believed belonged to them. Jace cackled, "Hey Carter, maybe she'll cry. That would make this video go viral." Ms. Hill didn't cry. She didn't yell. She simply rose, slowly, deliberately, mud dripping from her palms. There was something in her eyes that made a few onlookers flinch. Not rage. Not fear. But a patience that felt heavier than any anger could be. Blake tilted his head mockingly. "What? You gonna report us? Nobody here cares." She looked at them, her expression unreadable, and then spoke in a voice strangely calm for someone covered in mud. "No," she said, "I don't need to report you." Blake blinked, surprised by the answer. "I just need to teach you a lesson, one you won't forget." Jace snorted. "What are you gonna do? Meditate at us?" Carter laughed. "Maybe she knows fake karate." Blake smirked. "Yeah, I bet she's one of those black belt claims from YouTube." They had no idea how close to the truth they were. Ms. Hill, still dripping mud, stepped back and placed her bag gently on the bench. The entire field went silent. Even the birds paused. Blake scoffed. "What? You wanna fight us? Lady, you're a teacher." She tied her muddy hair into a tight knot, wiped her palms on her ruined shirt, and then straightened her posture. "You're right," she said softly. "I am a teacher. And it's time for your first lesson." What happened next became the shock of Crestwood High. Blake moved first arrogantly, stepping toward her with the swagger of someone who had never faced real consequences. But Miss Hill's foot sliced through the air with the elegance of a dancer and the precision of a warrior, stopping a hair's width from his jaw. A collective gasp echoed across the field. She didn't hit him, she didn't need to. The speed alone stunned him into silence. Whoa, what the? Jace stuttered, his phone trembling in his hand. Miss Hill pivoted gracefully, her movements fluid, powerful, controlled. Every stance she took held years of discipline. Every step reminded onlookers of martial artists they had only seen in movies. This isn't fake, she said calmly. This is years of training. Years of defending people weaker than you. Years of teaching bullies that their power ends where another person's dignity begins. Blake stepped back, suddenly unsure. Why, you could get fired for this. She smiled faintly. I haven't touched you. But you pushed me into the mud. You recorded it. You humiliated yourself, not me. The field erupted into murmurs. Jace, panicking, turned his phone off. Carter looked between his friends, fear finally sinking in. For the first time in their lives, they weren't in control. Miss Hill took one single step closer, calm, steady, unwavering. If you want to continue this, she said quietly, I can defend myself. But if you want to learn something, then listen. The lions froze. Every student around them leaned forward. Miss Hill stood tall despite the mud staining her from head to toe, and her voice carried across the field with a calm intensity. Strength is not what you use to hurt people. Strength is what you use to protect them. And respect, true respect, is earned by character, not fear. Her words didn't shout, they resonated. Something in her tone made the bullies shift uncomfortably under the weight of their own actions. They had no comebacks left. No jokes. No dominance. For the first time, the school saw them small.ms. Hill picked up her bag, her dignity intact despite the mud. She turned to the shocked crowd. Class dismissed, she said softly, leaving the field with the grace of someone who hadn't lost anything, but instead had won something deeper, the beginning of change. And behind her, the lions stood frozen, haunted by the realization that they had underestimated the wrong woman. And tomorrow, the whole school would know. Rumors spread through Crestwood High like wildfire. By the next morning, whispers buzzed through every hallway. Did she really dodge Blake's punch? Is she really a martial artist? She didn't even touch them. Videos of the mud incident had already bounced across private group chats before Jace desperately tried deleting them. But once something touches the digital world, it never truly disappears. Students admired her courage. Some felt guilty for not defending her. Others approached her classroom early just to catch a glimpse of the teacher who stood against the school's untouchable tyrants. The lions entered school with unusual silence. Blake's arrogance had cracked overnight. Carter walked with his hood over his head. Jace avoided eye contact, terrified someone would bring up the video. All three expected Ms. Hill to report them, expected a call from the principal or worse, their parents. But the school day started normally. No dramatic announcements. No punishments. No lectures. The silence terrified them more than consequences. When Miss Hill entered her classroom, her hair neatly tied, her clothes freshly washed, and her smile gentle, a hush fell over the room. Every student stared at her with a mix of awe and curiosity. She set her books on the desk and looked around warmly. Before we start, she said gently, I want to address what happened yesterday. A collective gasp filled the room. Students leaned in. The bullies stiffened. What happened was wrong, she said. Not because I fell into the mud. That's just dirt. Her eyes locked onto Blake, Carter, and Jace, not with anger, but with sincerity none of them expected. The real wrong was the idea that some people think they are allowed to treat others as less. That mindset is what needs to change. Blake swallowed hard. She continued, I'm not here to embarrass anyone. I'm not here to punish anyone. I'm here to teach. And sometimes, life gives us painful lessons before it gives us meaningful ones. The room fell into complete silence. Even the air felt still. Then she smiled softly again. Now, let's learn something important. She began the lesson not with textbooks but with a story, a real one, about her own childhood. Growing up as the only girl of color in a neighborhood full of hostility, she had endured insults, isolation, and violence. She spoke of how martial arts wasn't something she learned to fight others, but to fight her own fear. Discipline became her armor. Self-control became her weapon. Respect became her strength. Students listened with wide eyes, some moved to tears, some inspired. When class ended, students lingered behind just to thank her. For the first time in years, Crestwood High felt like a community. But the real breakthrough came when Blake, Carter, and Jace approached her hesitantly. Blake cleared his throat, struggling to form words. About yesterday. We went too far. Ms. Hill didn't interrupt. Carter spoke next.